Welcome to the Fantasy Source Football Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with Brad Pinkerton, and the regular season, fantasy season, is over for most leagues. There are a few oddballs who play their Super Bowl week in Week 17. I don't know what you people are thinking, but so be it. For the rest of us, most of us, that is, our playoffs are about to begin. And with the playoffs come a little bit of anxiety and the opportunity to overthink yourself, which is what our theme is for the day. So, Brad, I'm going to ask you, are there any matchups that you see in this upcoming week, players, fantasy performers who have done well, that you see owners being really tempted to bench them?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of anxiety, and, there's going to be some temptation to bench some guys who have been really hot. And we can look at the guy last night, MVP of Monday Night Football, Tom Brady, goes out there and shreds the Jets defense in a tough matchup. Well, he's got Chicago coming up next week, who has allowed the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. So, as a Tom Brady owner, should you be thinking about benching him? Absolutely not. You've got to ride the hot hand and trust that Brady can find a way to crack through Chicago's defense.
Now, would you advise that even if, say, somebody has a top 12 quarterback on their bench? Like, I don't know who you might name as one of those top 12 guys, but a guy at the bottom end of those 12.
You would have to have been lucky enough to pick up Mike Vick during the season and have that, fortunate problem to make or choice to make there. But you still have to ride with Brady. Like, even a low-end QB1 is probably going to have to stay on the bench for you this week.
Okay, what about the running backs?
Running backs, I think you can look up and down and see some elite guys with tough matchups like an Arian Foster at Baltimore. Again, tempting to sit him, but I think Arian has proved himself this year, and he deserves the benefit of the doubt this week. You have to go with him.
I think the most amazing thing about Arian Foster is that he's actually held on to the job the entire season, especially given Gary Kubiak's quick hook.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Slayton had, 1,300 yards in 10 games or whatever it was that one early year, and he had 60 receptions and something insane like that. Became an absolute beast for the 1 year, and then because he had something like 4 fumbles, he got yanked from the job. But of course, because it's Kubiak and he's one of the architects behind that amazing Denver running back dynasty, he can just take a 7th round undrafted, whatever Arian Foster was, a guy that Tennessee fans will say had fumbleitis, plug him in, and all of a sudden now he's a monster.
That's something for Foster owners to keep in mind for next year, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. If you're in one of those leagues and you think like you're going to be overdrafting him next year just because you need to have him, or you think he's one of the elite guys, just remember, it's Gary Kubiak. The other side of this that I see are those teams that have developed a reputation for being stout defenses and where the real-life football analysis kind of bleeds into fantasy, and it may not necessarily be in your best interest to pay attention to those real-life thoughts, as it were. For instance, Minnesota. Minnesota has a reputation for having a pretty good defense, especially with Jared Allen, who has struggled this year, and the rest of that defensive line anchoring them. The thing is that when you actually look at how they've produced this year, you might find some inefficiencies. For instance, they're just not that great against wide receivers this year, and I think that with Mario Manningham and Derek Hayden being available out there, and you might consider starting those guys against them this week.
Those might be a little risky, the receivers, this week because of the status of Steve Smith. If he comes back, how much is he going to play? How effective is he going to be? Who's he going to steal from, etc. But just like you said, Minnesota, they've been good, but not that great. They've been better against the run. I would still start Ahmad Bradshaw against them. And I wouldn't mind running Mario Manningham out there as a wide receiver 3 if I had to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not saying you start them no matter what over Calvin Johnson, but if you've got, say, Brian Hartline or one of those other borderline guys, that's something to keep in mind. So who else do you have on your list as guys that you imagine owners out there might be considering platooning with someone else, but you'd say, no, stop overthinking it?
Well, along the same lines of what you just said about perceived toughness of defenses, some Terrell Owens owners out there might be thinking, well, Pittsburgh, they're really tough. We should bench them against. Don't forget that T.O. had 10 catches for over 140 yards and 2 touchdowns the last time those two teams played. So keep him in your lineup. He's still a wide receiver 1, even if it's the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about T.O. that I've noticed this year is that we had all these questions about whether he'd be able to coexist with Chad Ochocinco. He's pretty much usurped him, which is, I think, a scenario that not many of us even imagined would happen.
They're few and far between where those two have actually shared those. So, it's made it tough living for Ocho Cinco owners because he's been on the short end most times.
All right, Brad. Well, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
All right, thanks a lot.